Okej, det är ju som konstverk.
Ja, det är ju som konstverk om det är så här. Jag tror att de har pressat. De har färger. Många av de här som är på utsidan kan ju vara röda.
Laponia, nature and natives. I'll just explain first of all about the arrangements. The session will be in two halves. First of all, we're going to see a very beautiful film that's been made by Veronica Bernacchioni, who's here, and Andrea Barghi, who's here. And they will, this is the first time this film has been shown in Scotland. It's a beautiful film showing life in Laponia, both nature and the people, the Sami people that live there. Andrea and Veronica are not simply filmmakers and photographers. They also produce the most beautiful publications. And I first discovered them through a publication that was launched here about a year and a half ago. Is that right? Yeah. Which is a beautiful book about the Norrbotten, the northern lands in Sweden. And when I heard that they were producing another publication and that was going to include some images and text about the Sami people, I was very excited, and that's why we invited them here to launch our indigenous program at the Botanic Gardens. So do take the opportunity at the end to have a look at the beautiful book that's been produced. The other thing that I was going to say is that the music in the film that we've just seen, Jana, is one of the groups that were singing beautiful traditional music from Laponia, and then finally, before I sit down, I'd like to introduce the chair of this afternoon. I'm absolutely delighted that Professor Tim Ingold, from the Chair of Social Anthropology from Aberdeen University, agreed to chair this session. Pete working as a PhD student in the north of Finland, working with Sami people, and he has written the definitive text book on reindeer herders and pastoralism. So it would have been impossible to get a better person to come along and to chair this session. So.
Okay, thank you very much, Ian. You've already introduced everybody. I'll just say the names once again. So we've got Andrea Barghi, one of the filmmakers, the other Veronica Bernacchioni, and here Bernacchioni, who's the development manager at Gällivare commune, that's in the north of Sweden, but also involved in the management of the Laponia UNESCO World Heritage Site, and Erik Kuljok, who is a resident, long-term resident of the area. I thought I'd just start by pitching a question first to Erik and then to Bernd, and then just to get the discussion going, and then we'll be very happy to invite questions, comments from you, and we'll all take part in the discussion. My question to Erik is this one. It's a puzzling fact that when we talk about Sami culture and when we see it on film, the first thing people tend to think about is reindeer. And they think of large herds of reindeer with people herding them by one means or another. That kind of large-scale reindeer herding developed around about the 16th century in response to a number of historical factors, including the demands of the Swedish state for taxes and the movement of Scandinavian colonists northwards that was putting some pressure on the land. It's a puzzle to me as to why a mode of life that is 300 or 400 years old at most, and is a result actually of historical developments at that time, is so commonly understood as the hallmark of a timeless Sami culture, particularly when you remember that I think in Sweden, as in Finland and Norway too, only a minority of Sami people are actually herding reindeer. And I wonder what you would like to comment on that. Should we think of reindeer herding as some kind of timeless indicator of Sami culture? And what about all those other Sami who are just as much Sami as the reindeer herders, who sometimes, not always, speak the language, but are maybe living in cities, or farming, or fishing? What about them? Are they...
Yeah, I have present Erik Kuljok from my own words. That's necessary for me. Oh, the answer of that question, it's like that. The Sami people, we have no if you say levels, how many children you have. So of course we even have 5, 6 children, and maybe in the reindeer herding in these days, it's no. We have geographically smaller areas to use, and when we have smaller area to use, you can't be 7 in a family who live on the reindeers. So actually you have right that my sister's son, one lives in Canary Island and one in Hong Kong, and we have spread all around the world. So we are not only in Laponia. We're sitting in the supermarket and everywhere.
The rhetoric or the ideology that underpins the notion of a UNESCO World Heritage Site, that rhetoric suggests that the nature, the biodiversity, even the people who are living inside that biodiversity are a sort of common property for all of us, for all of humanity. And it somehow seems to set nature apart from the humanity who owns it. It's like as though all those mountains, all those lakes, all those birds, and the people too, are somehow our common property. But at the same time, for the people who are living there, it's their life. the Sami don't belong to anybody apart from themselves, just as we don't belong to anybody apart from ourselves. So how can we reconcile the rhetoric of world heritage, of the idea that there are these traditional forms of life and unspoiled landscapes that belong to everybody, with the reality that these are places in which people have always lived and forged a history, and where life has never been always the same?
Of course, that's a dilemma. And we have tried now when we are working with the management of this area. It's a very, very vast land, big land. You know, it's 9,400 square kilometers. I don't know how big Scotland is, but it's maybe half or a third or part of Scotland. And people have lived and moved in this area for thousands and thousands of years after the Ice Age. The oldest settlement we have found in the area is 6,000 years old. So it's of course a dilemma that this is a heritage, but it's also a home and a living space. But the best thing we can do is actually to describe this, that this land, which is actually very unspoiled, has also been a home for people for many, many years. And people have lived there, hunting, fishing, herding reindeers and whatever they have done. But the land is still there, and it looks like if it's almost untouched. But of course, if you take a closer look, you can see traces all over this land of people who have lived here. This is a land where this site has been a place where people have lived for a long time, but they have lived in a way that shows that you can live in nature and not spoil it. And how does it work, this connection between nature and people? That's the story we want to tell.
Okay.
Now, Laponia was pronounced World Heritage in 1996. And we have been working with their management and so forth since then. And now we have, since 3 years back, we have a local management for this site. So the Sami people, represented by 9 Sami reindeer herding districts, the government by the Agency for Environmental Protection, and the county, and the municipality of Gällivare and Jokkmokk, who is where the site is. We are managing this together, and the main cause is of course to have benefits, to work with reindeer herding, Sami culture, but also nature preservation, and of course tourism. But we have to work with tourism in a very careful way. As we said, this is a landscape to be. You have to protect it, and you have to consider that this is home for people. So you can't do anything like as a tourist manager. So we don't know the result yet, but we think it's for benefit.
Yes, the gentleman just behind you again.
I would like to ask about education, but to before that mention that at Sulitjelma I saw helicopters in action in 1961, certainly not new, they've been used for at least 50-60 years. About education, I'm interested in how you approach the challenge of remote living with education, and how many of your young people finish school, and what percentage of your population are under age 15. I ask on the background because I work in a remote area in another part of the world in which this is a major challenge, and this was discussed I think 2 weeks ago in Tromsø. There was an Indigenous World Conference there, of which education featured quite largely, including representatives from Australian Indigenous people.
Yeah, if I understand the question right, so they were talking about how we can educate new reindeer herders. We have a positive way to see most of the thing. We're not, Sami people would have been dying for years ago and for a long time ago if we are sitting and crying over ourselves. We have to make it positive way to give the young who's coming after me. I'm not going to say you have to start to take care of my reindeers when I get old and come, and when I going into that tree box, then you have to take it over. That's not the way we do it. I think I say to my children, I just stick out in the forest, and they start to ask, what are you doing there in the forest? Oh, yeah, okay. Then they start to follow me, and they follow when we are in the fence with the reindeers. They aren't 4 or 5 years. Then they start to follow. This can be 30 degrees a whole day, but they are there and they're playing other things. They not with my job. They are not together with me. They're playing with other kids around there in the environment of the reindeers. So I don't know, but some of the things they say, okay, that's it and that's it, yeah. So I think that's the way we have to do it, and I don't know if I'm special, but I try in the most of the time how how bad it is ever is. So I try to see it positive. That's a positive thinking. It's a necessary thing.
I don't know the figures that you ask for. I'm sorry, I can't answer that. But in Sweden we have a school system for the Sami people, and one of the main pedagogic ways they work is just to like Per Erik talks about, because and it's actually learning by doing. So they mix the traditional Swedish school system, learning theory, mathematics, reading, etc., but also put in the Sami knowledge, which is connected to very much, of course, to the reindeer herding, but also the contact with the nature. How this is quite new. This is not very old system. It's quite new. And it, of course, depends on how skillful the teachers are and so forth. So there is 2 levels of education. It's education of the pupils, but also education of the teacher, of course. So that this new pedagogic way of learning is coming into the system, so to say.
We have worked with the Sami, which was probably the most exciting experience that we have ever had in our career, in our lives. It was both very fascinating and very difficult at the same time. So first of all, the main difficulty was to be accepted by them. So, consider that we have moved, so we come from Italy, but we have moved in that area since about 4 years now. So we belong to the community, they know us, and we have produced other projects, other publications on this area. Which I believe they go in the same direction as the sensibility and the feelings and the culture of Sami go. But the condition, anyway, beside this first initial problem, were very critical, because the kind of the rule for this project was that you have just one occasion to shoot one specific event, like for instance the biggest one, which is in the year of the Sami people, which is the calf marking, and you have to cross rivers, mountains, you have to walk for kilometers with heavy backpack. You have to do everything, and following these herds of reindeers you don't know where, you don't know when, you don't know if it will happen, and so the conditions were very critical at all. So you have just that occasion. Take it or miss it. You don't get a second occasion. For instance, the event when the reindeers at the beginning of the film they run out this fence and they cross the lake to the mountains. The migration is started then. According to our friend, our Sami guide, he told us, don't worry. I think it would take. Maybe 30 minutes, they will go very calm there, you know, there's no hurry, put your cameras and we can do it very easy. And they immediately, as soon as they open the fence, they immediately run after, yes, and they wanted to go to cross the lake and to go to better, you know, grazing areas, so they didn't care at all if we were there filming or not. So, for instance, that was just an example to let you know the situation. So, we have just tried to do our best to film whatever was possible. But
per dire che le donne c'erano perché vestite in quel modo lì.
And there were a lot of women.
C'erano molti.
Yes, maybe not. You can't recognize them so well because they are in the same fence with the men and the child and the children and so on. So I mean, it's a community working there all together. From my experience, is one of the society where women have the same rights as men. So there is no really division in this sense, for what I've experienced.
Not the same.
No, some differences.
Not the same. The Sami women are the headmasters in the family.
I'm very interested in environmental change and how that might impact on the annual herding of the animals, and particularly the freezing of rivers and so on. Has that changed at all in the last decade?
Yeah, I observe, but it's have accelerated this few years. It has been really bad, and it's going faster and faster, these things. You see the change in the fish and the population of the type of the fish, and that's many things going on. And we have a lot of snow. In my age, I never had so much snow in the area where I live. But in this year, and near the coast, they have no snow, and there used to be a meter of snow. But not so cold winters anymore. For 20 years ago, we have 3 months about 30 degrees, minus degrees, and now we have 2 weeks. That's different.
And then finally, I would just like to call upon Per Erik to conclude the afternoon's proceedings by giving us a rendition of his work. Over to you.
I was maybe 12, 13, then I find out I knew a melody, but I didn't know where it comes from. And then after a while I find it out. And it was we have a religion, the church, you are not able to join in the Sami living life when the church was the boss, but now we have dig it up. And I remember she was a Christian, my mother, so she did it against herself. So it goes like this.